The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsnyder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by my co-host, Eric Knopsnyder. Eric, what's going on, brother?
Not too much, Jeff. Glad to be back.
You know, I was outside recently. It was 2 days ago. I was outside. I was working on my yard. I was actually pulling a stump out by hand. Yes, by hand. But I was working, and I just felt in the air like it was wrestling season. I could smell. It's like I could smell it. Do you ever get that feeling?
Yeah, I've always thought of it, fall is football season kind of thing. But certainly as it got colder, it's definitely feeling like it's getting to be wrestling season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I take that back. It smelled like fall, like football season. But what does football season mean? It means preseason workouts, and it means gearing up for wrestling season. It
means who's number one, Super 32. It's all coming here soon.
It's all coming up, Eric, and that's what we're going to be spending the majority of our time with you today is previewing who's number one. Love this event, Eric. I know you do as well. Just think we obviously like that it's being held in Pennsylvania, but just all the Pennsylvania talent, especially now with a couple replacements and added matches, we've got a lot of Pennsylvania flavor to discuss with who's number one.
Yeah, some great matchups there. I know we've been talking about it for I don't know, a month at least. As soon as the matchups came out, what it was going to be and what we're looking forward to and all that, and it's coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited about that, seeing how our Pennsylvania wrestlers do. We're actually going to have one of them on the show today. We're going to have Michael Beard, who's going to be making his second appearance at Who's Number One. He got a win last year over Jalon Embry in the Who's Number One championship wrestling match. And he's going to have a tough one this time around. He's going to go against Gavin Hoffman, who just came off a cadet bronze world medalist in Athens, Greece. So a lot of Pennsylvania flavor here. I love it. I'm excited. This is the kickoff. I feel like, Dapper Dan, Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic is the all-star at the end, and this is the all-star in the beginning.
Yeah, and in addition to the PA high school guys, you've got guys that are heading to Penn State and places that, guys that could end up at some of these places. So even though they're not all from Pennsylvania, you still have some more Pennsylvania flavor to it as well.
Yeah, Eric, and speaking of some of the preseason stuff, and I know we've talked about this before, but the Journeymen Classic is one of those tournaments that I've been a big fan of, the one of the premier preseason tournaments. It's not the size of Super 32, but it's by invitation only. They get some of the best guys in the nation to come and attend that event. We see a lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers travel up there to compete in it, and this year was no different. We had a lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers competing, and a lot of them did pretty well. Some guys that jumped off the page at me, Ryan Anderson, that was a big time win for him. He came away with a championship at 135 pounds. Eric, this guy, this was a weight that was just stacked. It had to have been the best weight I think in the tournament.
Well, and certainly well represented by Pennsylvania guys. Just littered throughout there. The place winners are mostly Pennsylvania guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the two guys that met in the finals at 135 pounds, Ryan Anderson from Becca, he won it. He beat Jojo Aragona from Pope John the 23rd. And it's interesting because Jojo is a Pennsylvania wrestler. He grew up in like the Delaware Valley School District area, Milford, PA. Decided he was going to go to Pope John Regional in New Jersey. So he's going to school in New Jersey, but he's always repping Pennsylvania. And when he's registered for tournaments, his home state is always Pennsylvania. So he's a Pennsylvania guy, right? He's there. And Ryan Anderson, who's from New Jersey, he's wrestles for Becca, who's obviously in Pennsylvania. It's just interesting because you have a guy from New Jersey wrestling for a Pennsylvania school. Then you have a guy from Pennsylvania wrestling for a New Jersey school.
And wrestling in New York.
And wrestling in New York, right. So it's you get the best of all three. You get all three states right there in the tri-state area competing against each other. But Ryan Anderson got a win over JoJo in the finals. But the big one was JoJo. I mean, he wrestled some of the best guys in the nation at the Journeyman. He beat Carson Manville, who we saw Eric and Fargo just destroy the competition in freestyle. I mean, he was just unmatched. He won OW because I was very impressed with the way he wrestled out in Fargo.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And as you said, I mean, you got Anderson, you've got Aragona, and then you get Andrew Wirt taking third in the weight. And then a couple more place winners with Patrick Gold and Gabe Miller. So just an unbelievable job by Pennsylvania guys at that 135 weight.
Yeah, very deep weight class. Aragona beat Wirt, and Wirt bounced back. He finishes with a 3-1 record for third place. Patrick Gould, he's a two-time state medalist, and he and Ryan Anderson were in the same pool, and they wrestled early on. Anderson won 5-2. He had a few good takedowns on Gould, and Gabe Miller, a guy who we saw out in Fargo. He was a Fargo All-American, was third in state last year from Pequay Valley. He finishes in 7th, has a 2-2 record. So, I mean, really, like you said, just the depth of Pennsylvania wrestlers at 135 pounds was great, and the fact that Anderson was able to come away with a championship, that's pretty impressive for him to beat all those top-ranked wrestlers. As Manville's one of the he's a freshman phenom. He's going to be at Wyoming Seminary. So there's a pretty good chance those two are going to see each other again.
Yeah, and we'll get to see some of Manville, as you said, being at Wyoming Seminary, some chances for Pennsylvania fans to get to see him there, and just a lot of talent in that weight, as you said.
Going through the weights, Eric, 106, Sheldon Seymour from Troy. He finishes third, 3-1 record. We saw him out in Fargo. Definitely think Sheldon's going to have a breakout season this year. He was undersized last year. He's still undersized, but he's at least growing into the 106-pound weight. Connor Redinger from Quaker Valley. He's a freshman. He took 6, went 1-3. And I watched, I think, 3 or 2 of his matches at Journeyman on Flow, and this guy, he's really he's got a lot of length to him, and I think if he just would be able to control the leg more, and he seemed like he was getting into some positions where he was using his length but not finishing, if you will. So I think once he gets into his routine and gets comfortable wrestling some of these quicker guys that he's probably not used to wrestling, I think he can use his length to his advantage and really turn some heads.
Well, and sometimes, kids are kind of growing into their bodies at that age. And sometimes if you're a taller kid at 106 at that point, it takes a little while to kind of find your way with it. And so that's certainly an opportunity there for him, as you said, once he gets more comfortable, to be able to use that length and use it to his advantage.
Yeah, and Connor will be one of those guys on PA Power's top incoming freshman of 2018. Just a matter of how high he is on that list. So that'll be coming out probably. We like to put it out at the end of October, beginning of November. So we get to go down to Super 32 because a lot of these guys are going to be down there. So it gives us a chance to see a lot of these wrestlers, since a lot of these we haven't seen since PJWs or any time in between then. So staying with Journeyman at 125 pounds, Ed Scott from Du Bois. He finishes in 4th. He had a 3-2 record. AJ Burkhart from Athens. He's 8th, 1-3. Doug Zapf, state champion from Pennsylvania, goes 1-3. He had a tough day. I mean, that 125 was a tough bracket, but I definitely think Dougie's probably going to end up being more like 120 to start the season. You remember Doug was a state champion last year at 106 pounds. So, he's a Penn commit. He's definitely going to be looking to put on some weight and some strength. But, I think this was at least he's battled. He scrapped. The one first match that he lost, he was just battling. He's not afraid to go after it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's surprising when you see him going 1-3 there. But as you said, when you jump from 106 to 125, having been a 106 guy for your career, that's a pretty big jump. So once he gets that weight under control, the talent is certainly there. It's just a matter of figuring out what weight is good for him this year while also growing into that bigger role for Penn so that he can get to be a really big 125 in college.
Yeah, there's no question the talent's there with Doug. Obviously that's apparent. And we got to see him out in Fargo with some of the best, and he was scrapping out there too. So this is, not a setback for Doug by any means. But 130 pounds Zach Glenn from Becca, he goes 2-2, finishes fourth. Ty Varndell from Cambridge Springs, he is ninth at 2-2 as well on the day. And we talked about that 135-pound bracket, just an insane amount of talent there, all from Pennsylvania. I'm really looking forward to seeing all these wrestlers competing in the upcoming season. And a lot of these wrestlers are registered for the Super 32. So, and Jojo Aragona was a Super 32 runner-up his freshman year. So we could see a lot of these guys meeting down in North Carolina.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting as we've talked before about Super 32, seeing some of those freshmen that you're writing about in the top incoming freshmen and see how they do there. So good chance to see them here at Journeyman and then to see it Super 32 and kind of get a feel for how those freshmen are going to do when they get to the PIAA or the prep competitions this year.
Absolutely, Eric. And a guy who I was big on last year, he was a freshman last year, but he got injured, ended his season a little bit early. Cole Handlovic from Becca, he was a runner-up at Journeyman at 140 pounds, 3-1. So he wrestled, I think, 126 majority of this season his freshman year at Becca. And he's a guy that would have helped them down the road in the dual team championships. But Cole comes back and he's healthy. He goes 3-1 to finish second. 145 pounds, another guy who's looking to get back on the mat. That's Ryan Vulakh. And this guy, a lot of people are like, I remember that name from somewhere. Well, he was a freshman state medalist from North Penn. I don't know if you remember this, Eric. He transferred then to Pope John Paul II and was ruled ineligible by the PIAA, so he had to sit out last year. So he's a junior now. This guy he's wrestled everywhere. He's wrestled Super 32, sophomore nationals, Flow nationals, and he looked really, really sharp. He's highly ranked by Flow. I think he's number 8 in the nation right now at 138 pounds, but he competed at 145, and he was the champion, went 4-0 on the day. So I know Ryan is hungry to get back on the mat. I really think he's going to be a threat this year, wherever weight he goes. I think wherever he goes, he's going to be in contention.
He is, and it's a shame whenever somebody has to sit out a year like that. The good thing is the difference between, now and 15 or 20 years ago. If you sat out a year then, there was really not much competition out there. Now it's going year-round so much that, as you said, he's able to get to the Flow Nationals, to the Journeyman, maybe NHSCA. Just there's so many competitions that it's not quite the same. If you miss that year, yeah, everybody wants to win a high school state title, but you can still have a really productive year even without that competition.
Right. And you see it time and time again. Look at Zane Rutherford. When he transferred from Line Mountain to Benton, he sat out a year. And what did he do? He won a cadet world medal, in freestyle.
He's doing all right for himself, I think.
Yeah, I'd say. I heard he's doing well in college. I forget where he goes, but and even a guy like Josh Jeva, who we got to talk to over the summer. But when he went from Pennsbury to Council Rock South, and he had to sit out, and he would say, fortunately for him, he won Fargo to raise his stock up. But with Ryan Vulakh, I think he's already made a name for himself. Being a freshman state medalist is good in itself, but then to go on and do some of the off-season things like he has, and like you said, it's fortunate that he's still able to compete, even though he had to sit out a year from competition in the PIAA. But again, I'm excited to see him come back on the mat, and I think we'll get to see him down in Super 32 as well. So.
Yeah, and at 152 pounds, Jeff, you got Aurelius Dunbar from Mercersburg Academy. He's one of the guys that you've been high on for a while since his days back at Greencastle Antrim. He was on the top incoming freshman list last year. Good showing at Journeyman with a 5th place, going 3-2 up there.
Yeah, Eric, and I like his upside here. I think he's only going to get better as he grows and matures, because he's always been a little bit heavier. He was 145 last year, and 152 now. So I think this experience is good for him to wrestle some of these older guys at Journeyman especially. So
at 160, we've got Tyler Stoltzfus of Mifflinburg, a runner-up at 160. Good showing there out of him. He goes 3-2 wrestling for Bison Legend.
Yeah, the Mifflinburg native. He's. I think a lot of people have him a little bit under the radar. He was a state qualifier as a freshman. I think he flew a little bit under the radar. But obviously, if you're the runner-up at Journeyman, you're doing something right. Nathaniel Bradley from Athens at 182, he finishes in 6th place. At 225, Hunter Katka from Sun Valley, he finishes 4th. He goes 2-2 on the day. And, Hunter's, he's still young. He's only, we talked to him a lot about him over the summer at Fargo, but, he's only a sophomore, and Hunter's wrestling at 225 pounds, but he goes 2-2 on the day at New York and finishes in 4th place at 285 pounds, a guy that you're going to be hearing a lot of, especially when we start talking about some of the top incoming freshmen. Jalen Stevens from Myersdale. This guy is a heavyweight, and he's young, but he's the real deal, Eric.
He is. It's kind of funny. He's in my area, but I've never actually seen him. I haven't gotten to see him yet. I saw him a little bit last year, I guess, at PJW's, where he won. I believe he won a state title 2 years ago and finished, I want to say, 3rd or 4th or something last season. But he's super talented kid. Seems to be wrestling everywhere over the summer and fall now, but he's a guy that doesn't. I'm not sure where he's going as far as clubs. I don't see him wrestling for Young Guns or anyone like that, which obviously in my area is huge, as well as in the Whippeal. But just super talented kid. Everybody I talk to talks about the speed, the quickness that he has for a big guy. And as you said, to go out there as a freshman and finish as runner-up at Journeyman is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and you're right, Eric. He was 3rd at PJW's in 2017. He was 5th in 2016.
Oh, so it was 2 years ago that he won.
He won it in 2015. And he's like you said, Myersdale wrestler. So he's a guy that I think is already getting some attention just in the way he's been competing. He was a runner up at the Super 32 qualifier. He's now the runner up at Journeyman, and this is a guy who you're going to want to keep an eye on for the rest of his career for 4 years. And he'll be down at Super 32. So we'll be able to, Eric, you haven't seen him, and you'll be able to get a front row look at him and see him in action.
Yeah, he lives 45 minutes from me, but I'm going to drive 8 hours to see him.
Is that all it is 8 hours? It felt like a lot longer in the car with you.
That's because we were arguing the whole time.
Well, yeah, don't bring up politics, and we won't have a problem. That's we learned that real quick. Yeah, so we'll steer clear of that, because could you imagine if we were in the podcasting business for politics?
Oh my God.
I feel like we would be millionaires if we would be podcasting. If we're in the wrong business. Maybe
we should just put the microphone on the whole drive down and just see what comes out of it.
That could sell. That would. I would have listened to it. I don't know if we'd both survive it, but I would definitely listen to it. So, I think hopefully this year's trip down will be a little more uneventful than it was last year. But I'm really looking forward to Super 32 again, Eric. It's a heck of a tournament. I love the talent there and just the prestige with that tournament. It's such a highly regarded tournament for a reason, and that's because some of the best wrestlers in the nation. You look at the names that have competed in that tournament, it's insane. It's just the level of talent is just so high there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see college coaches all over the place. Fargo All-Americans meeting up in early rounds, just incredible matches. The only thing is it's so big, it's hard to grasp everything that's going on.
Yeah, because you feel like you don't want to miss anything, but you inevitably will miss something because it's too much. It's system overload is what I like to say.
Yeah, and there's no place where you can see everything, so you got to kind of be looking back and forth. Which gym are you looking at and what's going on? But yeah, it's an awesome time. And as soon as we get who's number one on Sunday, then we'll start looking ahead to Super 32.
Yeah, our work is only beginning.
And we couldn't be more excited about it.
Yes, and neither could my fiance, who I'm really glad I proposed to before wrestling season. Because I don't know what that answer would be mid January. I don't know.
The answer would be, "Who are you again?"
Yeah, right. Where have you been for the last 3 months? So yes, speaking of where have you been, there's some guys on the move in terms of where they're going to be going to college. College commitments, it's strange because I was sitting there last night on the Twitter, and all of a sudden all these commitments started popping in. All these guys were direct messaging or saying, hey, we're about to commit. But a big one that we've been watching or following for a while is Justin McCoy, who's committed to Virginia. He's number 8 in the state and seniors. And Eric, you got to talk to him.
Yeah, Justin. Thankfully, he texted me and said, "Hey, I'm about to make a decision. I know you guys wanted to know first," and so he was able to kind of tip us off. We were able to talk to him and get the article up there just as he announced it, and he's very excited. He's going to be heading to Virginia, joining another guy from around this area in Robert Patrick of Ligonier Valley. So those two are very excited to be headed down there. So they're probably going to be roommates. McCoy, a state champ last year for Chestnut Ridge, looking to come back. Probably going to be at 152 this year. That's kind of what he's looking at. We'll be looking to get a second state title there and then bulk up a little bit. He said the Virginia coaches think he's still pretty lanky, can probably go up to 65, 74 in that range. So great kid, very good student, great athlete. He's playing football, and also he's now going to get a spot in the Who's Number One, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
You think a 174? He may have to get on the Jared McGill diet to get up to 174.
Well, evidently they know how to do it at Chestnut Ridge because McGill went from 32 to 70 last
Correct.
year.
Yes,
pretty incredible.
Well, I think McCoy's more realistically a 57, 65 pounder, just from my opinion. But were you surprised by Virginia, his pick?
No, that was really, if you'd to ask me beforehand, I probably would have guessed Virginia for him. Not really sure why, just kind of a gut feeling. But he was looking at some other really good schools, Cornell, Lehigh. So, great academics and great wrestling was kind of what he was looking for. And then, as I said, he was very excited to have Robbie Patrick going there as well. And they kind of know each other from Young Guns and rolling around together. So 2 guys from the same general area headed down there and seemed pretty excited about it.
Well, Justin was not the only one to give a commitment. A lot of guys over the last week have committed. Most recently, Jack Davis from Wyoming Seminary. He's a Hanover, Pennsylvania native. Jack's number 14 in the state and ranked seniors. He's going to be heading out to Pittsburgh. My gosh, their class just keeps on getting better and better.
Yeah, a lot of excitement around pit wrestling right now. Obviously, I'm still somewhat close to the program, having gone there. And, this is the most excitement I've ever seen around the program in the 20-plus years that I've been around it. Just seems like everybody's talking about it, the RTC, Coach Gavin, how he's going to do there. Now, every week they seem to be getting a big-name recruit saying that he's coming there. And Jack Davis, they also got a state champ from Ohio this week. So a lot of excitement surrounding the pit wrestling program right now.
And Jack's, he's a heck of a wrestler. He was a national prep champion as a freshman, was runner-up last year, Fargo All-American. He's really good. And I think his style transitions nicely into college. So I'm very excited to see what he's able to bring to the Pitt Panthers. But just like you said, just yet another big-name wrestler from Pennsylvania staying in state and going to Pitt. That's huge for Keith Gavin.
Talk about huge. How about number 17, Dalton Group, going to Pitt Johnstown? What a coup that is for Coach Pat Pecora.
I mean, talk about a steal. Dalton Group's definitely one of those guys that I mean, he's high up there on my list in terms of, just guys who can get it done. Dalton Group was a state runner-up last year. He's number 17 in the state, currently ranked as a senior, and I think Dalton's, he obviously liked what he saw at UPJ and PAP30.
Yeah, and Coach Pecora, I mean, he can do this. They're a Division II school, but he will tell you all the time, as he does me, that, there's not a big difference between Division I and Division II because they see these guys at different tournaments. Now that they're in the PSAC, they see Edinburgh. They can compete with Division I schools. And if the feeling is right there, as it obviously was for Dalton Group, Coach Pecora, and you got Jody Stripmatter helping out there a little bit. Just some awesome coaching there, and a powerhouse program that has been for years.
Yeah, and I know Coach Pecora he would lecture you and tell you, Eric, there's not much difference between Division II and Division I. I remember being privy to some of those conversations. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Coach Pecora got a steal here, I think, with Dalton Group. I think that's a huge pickup for them, especially early on, too. We see a lot of guys committing to UPJ towards maybe the end of the season. And this really starts the ball rolling for him and his recruiting class. So good job to Dalton. And another state runner-up, Luke McGonigal from Clearfield, is heading to Lock Haven. So Coach Scott Moore is, he's been tapping that pipeline in Pennsylvania for a few years now. And I think he gets a good one here with Luke McGonigal, who's really been one of the better wrestlers over the last 3 years. He's always been highly regarded. And he finishes as the state runner-up last year. So that's a big pickup for Coach Moore. And number 40, Andrew Wirtz, a guy goes to my high school at Central Dauphin. He's going to be going to Army. So Wirt is a guy who's always been in the mix. He seems like he's been around for forever. But he committed to Army, where he's going to be furthering his academic and athletic careers.
Yeah, and another guy that is going to be going to Army is a junior, Jared McGill, announced this week that he's headed to Army, and I got a chance to speak with him, and his was pretty interesting as well. He had an interesting comment. He told me, he said, for him, going to Army was a better option. He said, even if Penn State would offer me a full ride, which he said, I understand they're probably not going to, but even if they did, Army's a better choice for me because not only do I get a free education there, but I'm already moving towards a career as soon as I'm done with the education aspect of it. I've already got a job. So he really likes what Army can do for him, and is pretty excited about that chance to head up to Army. Jeff, you've got junior rankings coming out here soon, don't you?
I certainly do. The work never ends, Eric. And class of 2019 rankings are going to be coming out here within the next week or so. But Jared's going to be number 7. So I've got about the top 50 done. I'm just kind of hashing out through the rest of it. Probably going to do top 100 or 150. I'm not going to go too crazy like I do with seniors and go 300. But no, Jared is just, really bright kid. I like him a lot. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I hope Army knows that they're getting a heavyweight.
And now he told me he's done with that. He's not going from like 170 to heavyweight this year.
Oh,
he went from 132 to 170. That's enough. He's sticking around there right now.
I was expecting 30 more pounds. I was expecting to be 195, 220, all in that range. But Jared's, he's one of the first big commits from the class of 2019. Julian Klebov is another one who's going to be headed out to Arizona State. So, that's a fun class to look at too. That's kind of why I do it, because it's really fun to look at. Some of these top guys that just finished their sophomore years, going into their junior seasons, and whose stock is going up, and it's always fun to take a look at that.
Well, and the guy that I think of immediately when you say a guy whose stock is going up is Carter Starocki. He's a guy who has really opened some eyes with his performance out at Fargo. A solid showing in the state tournament this year, and then it just keeps going up and up. And I checked in with Carter this week to see what he was thinking as far as a time frame. He said he's not looking to rush anything. He's taking his time, going to talk to some colleges, and probably won't make a decision until after this season, going into his senior season. And so, honestly, for me, I would think that's probably the right approach to take. I know guys obviously see it as they want to, make a decision, but I would think that you're better off using that time, talking to different schools, because as a 16, 17-year-old kid, I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. I know that. And so it's tough to make that decision, before your junior season even starts for a lot of people.
Eric, aren't you still trying to figure out what you want to do?
I am. If anybody has any offers, let me know.
Well, don't worry. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life too. So, but yes, Jared McGill going to Army. It's funny you're talking about Starocki, Carter. I saw on Flow they said he was taking an unofficial visit to Virginia Tech over the weekend, and I believe they also said Sammy Sasso was making a trip down to Virginia Tech. I can't confirm that or not, but Sasso and Trent Hidlay are two of the last big ones from Pennsylvania, if you will, that are still out there.
Yeah, I saw them kind of going back and forth on Twitter about planes and all that stuff. So I'm pretty sure they were both out doing some visits this past weekend and getting some frequent flyer miles in there.
I don't know if did you see the picture of Trent Hidlay down in Iowa with Sammy Brooks? They both had jorts on.
I did not see that.
You got to see it. Go on his Instagram page. It's great. Trent Hidlay has a pair of jorts on with Sammy Brooks, who, and famously has the mullet. I don't know if you remember that interview he gave.
Oh, who can ever forget the interview that he gave?
It's insane. So I could see Trent doing something like that too.
Yeah, but Trent doesn't have the mullet anymore unless he's grown it back since the summer.
No, he very well could. I don't know.
You saw the Instagram. Did he have it on there?
You couldn't really take your eyes off the jorts. So, I don't think I made it up to see what his hair was looking like. But, we'll find out this Sunday because we'll be seeing him at Who's Number One. So Eric, we've been talking about it all episode. The Who's Number One is coming at you on Sunday. Let's just dive right in and take a look at all the Pennsylvania wrestlers that are going to be competing and what's in store for the fans.
Yeah. Great lineup. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 matches that include Pennsylvania wrestlers, including one head-to-head matchup.
The first Pennsylvania wrestler that fans are going to see in the Snake Pit is Trent Hidlay, who's currently ranked number 1 in the nation by Flow at 170 pounds. He's going to be taking on number 2, Julian Ramirez from Florida, who's competing in Blair, New Jersey. And Ramirez he was 3rd in the nation in national preps this last year. And what's interesting about this matchup is both these wrestlers have a loss to Aaron Brooks.
Yeah, we saw Trent, obviously, out at Fargo, lose to Aaron Brooks this year. And Brooks is a guy, you're talking about someone whose stock has risen. His has just exploded over the past year or so. But he lost to Aaron Brooks in the Fargo finals this year. And I think Ramirez was 2016 he lost to Brooks at Fargo.
Yeah, in the cadets, and this past year in juniors, Hidlay lost to him. And Brooks went on to win a world UWW World Championship, so he's pretty decent, and I think he's actually going to go to the OTC out in Colorado Springs instead of going to college straight away. So he's a guy that a lot of coaches are going to want to have in their room. But regardless, Trent has a chance to really cement his spot at number 1 in the nation. Trent's a guy that for a while he was behind Caleb Young from Punxsutawney. He's always been up there in the mix, and I think this is a good chance for him to really just let the world know and let the nation know that, hey, my brother Hayden may be looking to start his redshirt freshman year at NC State, but Trent's, he's going to make some noise too.
He definitely is. He's a guy that tons of colleges want, and he's kind of playing it close to the vest anytime I've talked to him about what he's looking at, not showing his hand too much. But I think we'll probably have a decision from him in the not too distant future as to where he's going to go.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I'm going to be very interested to see where Trent ends up. I mean, obviously with NC State, where Hayden's there, but obviously a lot of other schools are showing interest in him. Iowa, is clearly up there, and I'm excited for Trent, and I think hopefully we know soon where he'll be going, but wherever he goes, the jorts will follow.
Well, and Trent is just so good for wrestling because not only is he a great wrestler, but he's a great personality. He brings some style, some flair, but he's also really intelligent too. It's not like he's just a kind of goofball out there wearing jorts. You talk to him and he's very well spoken, intelligent guy, and just has a lot of good things in front of him.
He's got a lot of energy, on and off the mat, and he's a character, but he's awesome. So I like the way he conducts himself on and off the mat. I think he does it, the right way. I think he works hard. I think you see that in him when he's out there competing. But Trent's he's gonna have his hands full. Julian Ramirez is definitely a guy who's looking to dethrone the senior. He's a junior at Blair, so this will be a good matchup. And this is a third match in the match order. The second match that you're going to see Pennsylvania guys right after 170, that's 152, where Justin McCoy, who comes in at number 6 in the nation, he's going to be taking on number 2, Brayton Lee from Indiana, who we got to see both these wrestlers out in Fargo over the summer.
We did. Justin McCoy, kind of a late addition here, just happened last week. He's replacing Will Lewin, who got injured and won't be able to compete in it. So I'm really interested to see how Justin's doing. As I said, he plays football. So I haven't gotten a chance to talk to him about it yet, whether he's actually going to play Friday night and then go wrestle on Sunday or what he's doing. But I know he's practicing this week, so practicing football, I mean. So it's kind of a tough thing to do both and get ready for a big matchup like that against a guy like Brayton Lee.
Yeah, that's impressive. That he would take that challenge and go to who's number 1, despite being the fact that he's midway through football season. That's pretty impressive for him.
That's what it was funny. Whenever I spoke to him about the college commitment, he scored 3 touchdowns on Friday night, got in the car, drove to Virginia Tech, took his visit there, and then on the way back on Sunday is when he decided that he was going to go to Virginia, that was going to be his choice. So, busy time for Justin, but he's a really good athlete, obviously an awesome wrestler, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, that's a tall order to say, hey, get ready for Brayton Lee in a week. But, I'm sure he's going to go out there and show us what he can do.
Yeah, Brayton Lee's very, very tough. We got to see him, as I said, at Fargo. He was 3rd at Fargo. McCoy was 6th in the same weight there. And Brayton Lee's another hot commodity that's, a lot of schools are trying to get in their room. But Brayton Lee, I mean, he's tough, So I think McCoy's going to have his hands full. I think, but then again, he has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose.
No.
He's not, What is, he's playing football right now. He's number 6 in the nation. He's already committed to Virginia. He has nothing to lose going against Brayton Lee, and I hope he makes it a good match with him.
Yeah, and I applaud him for taking it on short notice, saying, hey, I want to go out there and wrestle, show how I can do against the number 2 guy in the country.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an event that a lot of wrestlers, are honored to be a part of. So I'm sure Justin didn't want to skip out on that experience. Another 3rd in a row will be a Pennsylvania wrestler at 126 pounds. You got number 2, Gavin Teasdale. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to see a rematch from last year's Who's Number 1. Jordan Decatur sustained an injury, and he will not be able to compete. But Pat Glory from New Jersey is taking his spot, and that's a tall order as well. No easy out with Pat Glory, who's just a phenomenal wrestler, was a New Jersey state champion last year. And these two have some history.
Yeah, they've wrestled before. It was at the Powerade Finals, right?
Yeah, they wrestled 2 years in a row in the Powerade finals. It was Gavin's freshman and sophomore year. So they wrestled first year at 106, and Gavin won 13-3. It really wasn't much of a match. But then the next year was a lot closer. It was 6-5, and that was in 2016. And that was go if you have a chance, go on Flow and watch that match, Teasdale versus Glory in the 2016 Powerade finals. It was a great match. Glory was, I mean, he gave it to him. He really went after him. Teasdale was able to hit a slick, I believe it was a duck under, and he just sort of came out the back and just was able to sort of control him from top. It was a heck of a match. It certainly wasn't a 13-3 match like the year prior. So, and then Glory's only gotten better, in my opinion. He's only impressed me more since his freshman year. We got to see him down at Super 32 last year. This guy's really tough. So,
well, I remember him going back to last summer. He had kind of in the summer he bumped up in weight. I remember him wrestling Carnell Andrews, as a matter of fact, up at like 132. Had really gone up at that point and took some losses during the summer that kind of hurt his stock. But in the end, it might have been better for him because he was going up. He was seeking out the best competition, facing guys that he was giving up weight to. And it seems like he's really used that to kind of springboard up into the really upper echelon, and, you know, a chance now to wrestle in Who's Number One and possibly knock off Gavin Teasdale.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Gavin come in last year. I would say the favorite over Jordan Decatur, and wasn't able to come away with a win. Gavin's a guy that we saw. He was supposed to go out to Fargo this year, did not go. Obviously the commitment, he was committed to Iowa and went to verbally committed to Penn State. So I'm curious to see Teasdale back on the mat in a big time match such as Who's Number One. I think this will be good for his confidence level going into his senior season. And Pat Glory is, like I said, it's not going to be a 13-3 match like it was their freshman year at 106.
No, I don't think so. You've got a couple, you mentioned Gavin being a Penn State recruit, a couple of his future teammates coming up in matches here, in Roman Bravo Young at 132, and then Joe Lee at 160.
Yeah, and then just throw out Michael Beard as well, who's also been on at Penn State as well. So, Coach Sanderson should probably pay close attention to his future wrestlers right here. It's not long ago I remember Mark Hall wrestling in Who's Number One. So, like I said, just the level of talent that Flo's able to bring in to the Snake Pit and compete every year is just great. And to have these big name guys going at it. So, yeah, as you said, RBY is going against Joey Silva at 132. That's a match that I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to all these matches. Ja'Cory Teamer at 138 is going against Mitch Moore from Ohio. David Carr against Joe Lee. That's a Fargo rematch. It's really just kind of overwhelming. And then throw in there 195. You got number one Michael Beard versus number two Gavin Hoffman. Two Pennsylvania studs. Two guys that have been around Keystone State Wrestling for a very, very long time. This is going to be a heck of a match.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, especially for us, the Pennsylvania wrestling fans, to see two of these guys go at it. A PIAA guy and a prep guy really kind of locking horns here and deciding who's number one.
Yeah, and Beard, as we said, going to Penn State. Hoffman going to Ohio State. Can you beat that Big Ten matchup in this early? No,
and possibly a preview of things to come in the years ahead.
Now, what's interesting here, Eric, is both these guys are pretty successful freestyle wrestlers. Michael Beard was on a world team, competed in Pan Ams. Gavin Hoffman, as we talked about, just came back from Athens, Greece, where he was a bronze medalist. So both these guys, I think if you would say their peak it's probably right now. Beard we saw him last year at Who's Number One. Really, really just looked. I mean, I remember. I think you and I talked a lot about him afterwards. It's like, man, whoever gets him. I don't know if that was when he was committed to Northwestern or not, but he's really, really good. And we saw him just really take it to Embry and Who's Number One. So, what are your thoughts on this match? I know we're going to talk to Michael Beard here in a second, but what are your thoughts on this match?
Man, I love Gavin Hoffman. We've had him on the show before. Great wrestler, but boy, it's hard to go against Michael Beard.
I mean, Beard is just so. I mean, on his feet, his position is just so on point. And not only is he strong as an ox, he's pretty quick for a bigger guy, right? And I'm just. Yeah, he's tough to penetrate through. We've seen a lot of guys just. I mean, even like Embry, for example, last year. I mean, he was the guy who almost Jordan Burroughs like in his double legs, and he wasn't even able to touch Beard's legs. I don't think in that match. So. I mean, obviously, maybe 1 and 2 in the nation is going to be a good match. I would say, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see that one. There's a reason that it's the next to the last match, because it's one of the highlight matches, one of the marquee matchups of what is a lineup full of marquee matchups.
And then we end with a barn burner here. And, man, if it's anything like it was in Fargo, Eric, it's going to blow the roof off the Snake Pit. My gosh. Anthony Arlona from Florida going against Sammy Sasso at 145 pounds, number 1 in the nation versus number 3. Sammy Sasso has a chance to reclaim that top spot in the nation, which I know he wants. And this is going to be a heck of a match.
It is. I think you mentioned that Fargo match. I think that's going to be one of those matches that 10 years from now, you're going to be talking about that and saying, man, you remember that Artelona Sasso match? So if this one can come anywhere close to what we saw in Fargo, it's going to be well worth the price of admission on its own.
Absolutely, Eric, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing Sammy coming out and hopefully getting a W and getting some revenge on Artelona. And he's just so strong, Artelona. I mean, you look at those two together, and Artelona. I mean, he's huge. And Sammy's not the strongest guy. I mean, he's pretty strong, but his pedigree is more of a slickness. He's definitely a guy that you don't want to scramble with. You don't want to go on the mat with. Artelona is just so strong. At least he appears strong. I'm assuming he probably is. But this is a match that we saw Sammy here last year wrestling in Who's Number One, and we remember watching him against Nick Lee, and we thought, man, he just wasn't able to get anything going against him.
No, and I can't wait to see Nick Lee in college. I think he's going to be an absolute beast from the time he gets on the mat at Penn State. But yeah, I'm sure Sammy, remembers what happened last year, remembers the loss to Artelona and Fargo, where he was up big and wasn't able to hold on there. So plenty of motivation for Sammy heading into this one, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait for that. And so as we go through and preview the Who's Number One, let's hear it from the man himself, the guy who's going to be wrestling in it for the second year in a row, comes in at number 1 in the nation at 195 pounds. That's Michael Beard from Malvern Prep. And joining us now is Michael Beard, the Malvern Prep senior. He's a 2-time national prep champion. He's getting ready to compete in Who's Number One in Lehigh. Michael, how you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
Very good. And, it's hard to believe that you're already a senior. Does it feel like it went by real quick?
Yeah, definitely. Felt like last year I was a little 7th grader, and now I'm just like a big senior trying to support the program as much as I can, I guess, and give back to like the community.
And you were obviously, highly touted throughout your youth career, always wrestling in some of the toughest tournaments, PJWs, and growing up in that area, the Daniel Boone area, and going to Malvern Prep. What's it been like being at Prep and really being in that environment? What's it been like for you?
It's been good. The transfer to Malvern was pretty smooth since I've known Nate Lauder, the head coach, just since I was 8 years old. I've been going to the Malvern Youth Club, so it was a smooth transition. And then, it went from there and just been working hard, had good partners at Malvern all my life. I have a great coach, and, just everything is good and going right for me.
And Michael, it seems like, as we talked about earlier, you're returning to Who's Number One. You were there last year, really looked sharp, against Embry there. And it just, again, this year, going back to Who's Number One, you get a tough guy. You get Gavin Hoffman, a fellow Pennsylvania wrestler. Is it kind of bittersweet that you got to wrestle a guy from Pennsylvania?
Yeah. I mean, Pennsylvania is probably the best state in the country, so that doesn't shock me too much. I wanted this matchup for a long time, so I'm glad I could have it. And, yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Michael, what's the atmosphere like there? We've been there a couple times now, and it just seems like it must be an incredible atmosphere to wrestle in. Everybody's crowded in there. It's jam-packed, and the crowd's going nuts. Do you hear any of that when you're out there, or do you just kind of take it in when you're not wrestling and appreciate it then?
Yeah, I mean, when you're going down the stairs to go to the mat, you definitely get nervous. And, it's really intense. And then once I got on the mat, started wrestling, like after the first 30 seconds, I feel like I just got in the zone and just wrestled my match, I guess.
Now, you and Gavin wrestled at the AAU Scholastic Duels, is that right?
Yeah.
How did that go?
He got the better part of me. I feel like I wasn't 100%, so I'm just excited for the matchup again. So,
was that a pretty close one, though?
Yeah, it ended up. I kind of tweaked my knee a little bit, so I injury defaulted around the third period. So, yeah, it was a close match, but it's kind of hurts that it ended that way. But
yeah, no sense pushing anything too much in that situation. But does that give you a little motivation in this one that you want to go out there and get another shot at him?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I like that I'm wrestling him again, but also I think I just have to focus on what I'm doing and how I'm training and not worry about my opponent too much.
And this could be, first of many times you guys are seeing each other. You're both going to the Big Ten schools. You going to Penn State, him going to Ohio State. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just, the fact that you're going to Penn State, and you're going to be a Nittany Lion, you're staying in state. What's the excitement level like around that?
Yes, it's so exciting, especially with the class of 2018 that we have. We have probably one of the best classes in history to commit to Penn State. So, and we all get along really well. So I'm really excited about that. And then just with like the rivalry against Hoffman and some of the others, it's just, I feel like we'll all just get better at the 197-pound weight class. So we're always going to have to wrestle each other, but yeah, it's fun.
You talked about some of your teammates, your future teammates, and it seems like a lot of them are going to be competing at Who's Number One. You got a lot of guys, future teammates. You got RBY. It's kind of incredible that you guys are all going to be wrestling in Who's Number One, and in a few short years, you're all going to be wrestling, up in Happy Valley together. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like we all get along together, and I hung out with Joe Lee on my official visit. I talked to Roman Bravo Young, Whitlake, even though he's not at Who's Number One, and I just feel like it's a great group of guys, and we all just want to get better and have fun while doing it. So,
Michael, maybe you can talk Flow into making it, instead of their teams that they have going up against each other, make it the Penn State recruits versus everybody else. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I was kind of joking about that earlier. Like, I was talking to Kale and Casey, and I was just saying how it's pretty much Penn State versus like the Cadet World Team or
yeah, that's true.
like that.
That's very true. You said you're preparing, you're getting ready for this. Can you talk about a little bit what your training's like? It's still early October, still a few months away from the season, but what's your training been like for the last few weeks leading up to this?
Yeah, so over the summer, I went to Penn State for a month, trained there, did like the RTC practices, and then about 2 or 3 months ago, I started training pretty hard for this, getting my conditioning down, running a lot, eating right, and then every weekend I'll go up to Penn State for practice and just roll around with some of the guys. So.
And talking about just having that experience going up to Penn State and competing with some of those guys that you had mentioned, what's it like your senior season? Because we see so many guys like yourself that are highly recruited, and then your senior season, it's like what else do you have to prove? You already won 2 national prep championships. How do you stay motivated throughout the season? You've won everything throughout your career at Malvern. So, how do you stay motivated to finish your senior season on the right note?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I won't do it for myself this year. I think I'll help out the team by getting as much points as possible. So that motivates me. And then for the future, I mean, I want to be more than just a great high school wrestler. I want to be NCAA champ. I want to be on world teams and everything like that. So until I get to that stage, I just got to keep working hard, I guess.
And talking about the team and scoring points, just looking at your roster coming into this year, the lineup for Malvern, it's a pretty scary lineup. You guys got a ton of talent. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and the team for this season, and you're sort of leading that, guiding that ship?
Yeah, I think our team gets along really well, and our lightweights are a bit young. They're freshmen and sophomores, and I just got to take a lead in practice. I got to work them hard and make sure they accomplish what they want to accomplish this year. And then the upper weights, we all practice hard. I have Ryan Caroli as a partner. And, yeah, it's good.
Is that why your Twitter handle's Captain Beard? Is because you're captaining that ship? Is that the correlation there?
No, it's actually not. So in 7th grade, we had a senior on the team that made like a comic book for school, and I was Captain Beardo in it. So like, yeah, you know how like all the seniors kind of pick on you when you're a little guy. So,
well, I don't think people are picking on you too much anymore. You've grown into quite a big young man, and going at it. Who's number one? We're gonna see that in full display, and we look forward to seeing you in the Snake Pit for the second time in a row. This has got to be pretty exciting for you to go back to Lehigh.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be back in the Snake Pit. Just a great atmosphere, and I guess I could show how hard I've been working.
And now for Malvern, you guys got Iron Man, correct, this year again?
Yeah, we have Iron Man, Beast of the East, Escape the Rock, and Prep Nationals.
So, and all those tournaments you won last year. You won them all, and it seems like you just continue to get better. Talk a little bit about the weight. How's your weight been? I know you last year you fluctuated between. What was it like this year? Do you feel like you have to cut a lot to get down?
No. Last year I weighed around 190, 195, so I just didn't feel big enough for 195. And then over the summer I've been eating, lifting, getting bigger. Now I weigh around 205, so not bad cut at all. Just pretty much naturally weigh that weight.
Well, that's good to hear, Michael. And I know that and we were talking earlier on the show. Eric and I were about you being such a bigger guy, but always being pretty quick. You seem like last year against Embry, he was sort of the athletic one, the quick one, but you really were able to shut him down. With that, do you feel like going against a 97 pounder like that, you feel like you still have that advantage, that strength and that quickness advantage over some guys?
Yeah, I think I do. I feel like the 95-pound weight class might not be as quick, I guess. Definitely stronger. So I guess I just use my speed for my advantage and focus on getting to my attacks, not too caught up in the hand fighting type.
All right, Michael, we appreciate you stopping in and giving some of your time to talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to, and looking forward to you wrestling again in Who's Number One. So appreciate you stopping by, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll see you. We'll see you in Lehigh, okay, brother?
Yep.
All right, sounds
Thanks,
good.
Michael.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
Again, Eric, appreciate Michael Beard taking the time out to talk to us on the PA Power Podcast. Looking forward to seeing him and Gavin Hoffman going at it. I think that's a heck of a matchup between two very accomplished wrestlers.
Yeah, definitely. Two PA guys. Should be a lot of fun, as are a lot of those matches that we've talked about already, and just can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, and you can follow along on all the action at PAPowerWrestling.com. We're going to be there at the Snake Pit to give you updates and coverage of all the Pennsylvania wrestlers that are competing there, and there's quite a few, Eric.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of guys to keep an eye on. And as we said, even the ones that aren't from Pennsylvania, you got a lot of Penn State recruits. So a lot of people that people are going to be watching out for in the years to come.
Absolutely, Eric. And you can follow along on Twitter. PA Power Wrestling on Twitter is at PA Power Wrestle. Find us on Facebook. And, Eric, I don't know if you saw this or not, but before we signed off, I wanted to send our condolences out to the Shippensburg wrestling community. If those of you who haven't heard, one of the victims in the Vegas tragedy, one of the 59 that were killed, was a wrestling coach, a youth wrestling coach from Pennsylvania, from the Shippensburg area. Bill Wolfe Jr., unfortunately, was one of the victims during that shooting spree in Las Vegas. And our condolences are sent out to the Shippensburg area community, especially those wrestlers that he encountered throughout his time as a coach. Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people affected by this. Coach Wolfe, I'm sure, touched a lot of people in that community, and just such a senseless act like this, it's really hard to grasp and kind of get your head around it. So, yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. Our condolences go out to all of them from the wrestling community.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about, obviously the wrestling community is, we are a strong community, and we have each other and to support on. And, there's already a GoFundMe page set up for Bill Wolfe Jr., and you can go on to just search on GoFundMe for Bill Wolfe Jr., and you can see that page there to donate. So, I hate to end on a somber note there, but we will be at Who's Number One. We'll be providing you with all the updates and actions, interviews, you name it. We're going to have it from the Snake Pit. So until next time, thanks for tuning in.